Hello and welcome back to part 4 of this series called From Pedagogy to Andragogy and Beyond, Exploring Lifelong Learning in a Montessori Context. This video series is a capstone project for the Masters of Educational Leadership program with a designation in Montessori education from Vancouver Island University. My name is Terrence Milley, and I'm filming these videos here from the beautiful land of the Six Nations of the Grand River and the Mississauga of the Credit First Nation, who hold the treaty with the Crown for these lands. I also remember the chain of Anishinaabe ancestors who served through time immemorial as stewards of this land, and remember myself as a white settler in this place, with much to learn, and one who needs to walk the lands with care, with curiosity, and with an open heart. In part 4, we'll be exploring from pedagogy to andragogy with more details about adult learning. Montessori education is a method of education that centers the child's development. That means the child is at the center. It requires a prepared environment that includes the built environment, the materials, and the prepared adult. It requires the sufficient conditions of freedom. And those conditions of freedom are not freedom to do whatever one wishes. They are conditions of freedom to follow that inner guide towards self-construction. It is a freedom to develop. There must be sufficient help towards this development through connection to the prepared environment and to the community of children. But in order to understand this a little bit further, we have to get beyond our common understanding of pedagogy. And our common understanding of pedagogy goes a little bit like this. Pedagogy is derived from the Greek word paidos and agagos. Paidos means child, and agagos means leader of. So a pedagogue is a leader of children. And in pedagogy, the learners only need to know what they must learn and what the teacher is teaching. That is how they will pass the test, and that is how they will be promoted to the next level. In pedagogy, the teacher's concept of the learner is that of a dependent personality. So the learner's self-concept becomes that of a dependent personality as well. So independence is not a function of learning. This doesn't work for Montessori, for Dr. Montessori, and it doesn't work for Dr. Knowles. Both of these pedagogues have said that the learner needs to have some independence in their own learning. So let's look then at andragogy. Andragogy is derived from the Greek word andros, meaning man or adult, and agagos, the same, meaning leader of. This redefinition leads to a more refined placement of the adult in the center of the learning model, which is where we want the adult or the child to be. The human being needs to be at the center of education, not the curriculum, not the state standards, not the provincial standards. It's got to be the human individual. And that is what Dr. Montessori and Dr. Knowles are telling us. What are the conditions for learning in adulthood then? Well, development is over. In the Montessori method, development was clearly at the center. The development of the child and the child themselves were at the center. So what is the contribution that an adult learner is making to society? What does it mean then to be a lifelong learner? Well, Dr. Knowles' idea of adult learning was like this. He did a comprehensive study on the unique characteristics of adult learners, and that study has been ongoing for 50 years. And he found that the orientation towards learning is life-centered. That means that it had to provide something to the learner's life, which leads us to experience. And so Dr. Knowles found that experience is the richest resource for adult learning. And indeed, if we look back to Dr. Montessori, experience was the resource for children's learning as well. Adults have a deep need to be self-directing. So that means that there has to be some choice or some way to be self-motivated towards this learning. Well, still, we're not coming to an idea of what is the contribution. And so there's a couple more things we can look at with adult learning. And the next one is the adult learning environment. So what are adult learning environments? Well, there are lecture environments where you sit in a lecture hall and someone stands at the front, the sage on the stage delivers the goods and you take your notes. But that's only one kind of experience. And if that kind of experience is delivered as a sort of storytelling, it can be effective. And if it's not, it could be dry and not effective. It could also be effective for some people and not effective for others. The second adult learning environment is one that provides experiences. So if you think of going to an art school where you're working with a potter's wheel, for example, and you have your hands in the clay and you're learning the technique in a manipulative, hands-on way, then that experience can be an excellent form of teaching. But you can also learn from situations you're not directly involved in, such as with case studies, where you read a case study of someone else's experience and you analyze it with a group of peers. Then there is the Socratic seminar. So this is a method where everybody reads the same reading material, comes up with some questions, brings those questions to the larger group, and has a discussion based on the reading material and the questions you've come up with. Thirdly, there's more manipulation and exploration, and this could be in many other ways that experience can be had. So for example, if you are interested in classic cars, then maybe you can have hands-on manipulation and exploration on a classic car that you own, but also be taking a course in automotive repair in order to understand the inner workings of that vehicle that is your hobby car. And then there is a learning environment that's newer for us, and it's the learning management system. So it's the kind of computer-based learning program that you can use that delivers information, provides feedback, and allows people to communicate. And modern learning management systems are fully integrated social hubs. So these are really developing and they're becoming more and more complicated. So those are some adult learning environments. But we still need to get to this idea of what is the motivation. And we know that, according to Dr. Knowles, that most motivation for adult learners comes from real life. So that means that adults are motivated to learn by experience, and they organize learning by experience. We should be organizing learning by experience rather than by subjects. So rather than by teaching one subject, the next subject, the next subject, it should be an integrated model of learning. And then also that the analysis of experience is a core methodology for adult learning. So that means we have to be willing to listen to a student's experiences and then allow them to process and analyze that experience as a part of their learning activity. It will help them to learn. So if we go back up, what is the contribution? What is it that the adult is offering to the in their learning? Well, the contribution is that they are helping to create the human environment that we live in. It's the human environment that's built on nature. And Dr. Montessori talked a lot about this and called that supra nature, which is the nature that human beings build on top of nature. We build that, which means that our contribution in adult learning is how to build that, how to build the better supernature.